The Ancients' World. Chapter 411, Judgment 2. Sarah and I are waiting on the edge for the chaos at the palace to start. There isn't much time before I finally get revenge for my mother and me. When do you think our chance to attack will open up? Sarah plans to activate his divine title to cause even more chaos and confusion. I'm becoming jumpier. Any minute now, we'll be attacking the estate. He takes a breath and folds his arms, closing his eyes at the same time. In the coming minutes, they know the path, and they should be entering the palace. They'll need a minute or two to cause enough trouble to bring attention from here. But it'll be fast. He hasn't stopped staring at the estate, and the only times I look away from it are to look at him. I wonder what my mother would say at this moment. Would she support this? I don't know. I didn't know her, and that's their fault. Tell me about what was in your mother's diaries. You said it was all you had to get to know her. Sarah speaks out of nowhere, and I see that he's turned from looking at the estate and is now looking at me. I've read over my mom's diaries countless times. It was all I had of her. I grew up as a slave, and she died shortly after I was born. The James family was a hellscape that I didn't think I'd ever escape. It was her diaries that kept me sane. She would write about her travels and where she'd been before becoming a slave. Her favorite part was eating new things. That's something I have in common with my mom. Sarah squats down next to me and is showing that he wants to hear more. There was a point that she thought her life couldn't get any better. She was traveling with friends and adventurers for a long time. After a while, they were caught in an ambush, and the women and children were taken as slaves. My mother was in them. This was before she was sold to the James family. The bandit leader that defiled my mother is also my father. She never stated his name in her diaries. Only the tortures she had to endure from the man. Despite being forced. When she learned she was pregnant with me, she loved me no matter what. That's what her diaries say. He gives a half smile and decides to stop squatting and sit down. There is a deep part of me that wishes my mom was here with me, that she could share this moment. The family that betrayed her and the royal family in command of the corrupt kingdom. I could never be that strong, not in her shoes or your shoes. Sarah decides to fill the silence, and I find his words hard to believe. He's the strongest person I know, and he can handle anything in my eyes. I'm not dependent on his power anymore, but I see that if anyone had true mental toughness, it'd be him. He sees my confused look and smiles. It's the truth, Sally. If I were in your role and your life, I'd have failed and died a long time ago. It's weird to hear this, but also good. It makes me feel stronger in myself. Even though I've gained all the confidence I'll ever need. I appreciate that he's telling me this. Thanks. I wish my mom could hear that in person. She endures 1,000 times worse than me. Her diary talks about what she had to go through. A person born into slavery is easier to control than someone who isn't. She was punished and tortured repeatedly for disobeying and trying to escape. There was one time she almost made it out, but she was too big with me and couldn't move as fast as she needed to. When I read that, I died a bit inside. You don't have to talk anymore. Looks like we've got our window. He stands up straight, and I look toward the estate to see soldiers and guards rushing towards the exits. Sarah's golden wings appear from his back, and a divine title appears above his head. The church announces the presence of Sarah to Greshina. He reaches out his arm towards me. I take it, and he pulls me close. He flaps his wings hard as he keeps me attached. We fly high into the air. After getting high enough, we dive down and crash right through the top of the main building. The notification of Sarah activating his divine title leaves my screen, and I focus on killing the last of my targets. We've been discovered, but Jasmine and I have done our part. Helda and her group are confronting the Elven Queen at this moment. Now that these guys are handled, let's go. I need to be there if Helda needs my backup facing the Queen. Jasmine and I hurry through the halls and pass bodies that litter the floor. Bodies of the men that we've killed, getting to all of our targets. Why did Sarah activate his divine title? Doesn't that seem a little counterproductive? Maybe. Maybe not. It depends on who you ask. I think it's perfect. It adds more chaos to what's happening, giving us more of a window to do what we need, and that's taking out Queen Orizox. He's doing it to cause confusion and chaos among the ranks of our enemies here. We're almost to the throne room. Remember, we're not to interfere unless Helda asks us. Helda feels like she needs to do this. A true elf has to kill the elven queen. It's nice to be free from looking like an elf, and I'm happy to say that I never want to go back. I see the massive doors leading into the throne room, and we slow down. I place my hand on the door and slowly push it open. What I'm met with is a confrontation. Helda and her group are staring down Queen Orizox on her throne. We should be reaching Greshina in 20 or so minutes. Traveling through the rain and night has helped us cover enough ground to be this close come morning. Marcus is now awake and walking beside us. There is a sudden message on my player screen, and it shows that Slayer Zirn has activated his divine title. That's Sarah, he's doing something. Chris and I look at each other, and we've found out that certain titles can only be seen through special conditions. One of them is range. We've just gotten into range of seeing the announcement of our son activating his divine title. We're close, honey. How about we run the rest of the way? It'll cut the time in half. He read my mind. Marcus is picked up, and we're already running hard. Haley and Sarah are just up ahead, and we're getting close. Closer than we've ever been before on this entire trip of trying to find them. I can't help wondering what they look like. I don't think they've changed, but they might still look like elves. If they do, Haley will be hard to find. Sarah, on the other hand, will be easy. All we have to do is find the man with a floating title above his head saying the son of Archangel Michael. I can't wait to see Haley and Sarah. Marcus lets out a small cheer, and I feel a boost in my energy at his words. It's been so long since I saw them. Chapter 412, Judgment 3. My attention is on Sally as she carves through another pair of guards. I spin and use my wings as blades. The surrounding soldiers are split and torn apart. I dash forward and kill two more with a single slash of the witness. I bring my wings in front of me, and I block two different attacks. I feel their swords break against my wings. Sally leaps over the top of me and dispatches the two soldiers, and takes their heads off with precise swings of her sword. The main room should be ahead, but we have more to go through to get to them. Sally keeps the conversation short as another group of soldiers and guards come around the corner. In a blast of speed, everything slows down, and I cut through them like water. My perception of time goes back to normal, and Sally looks towards me and the body's a little disappointed. What? This saves us time. Do you really want me to save some for you? She rolls her eyes and catches up to me. My wings are spread out and carving paths through the walls that are in their way. It's an intimidating sight. It has an effect on the group ahead. How many guards do they have? We've already killed a good number, and their forces are spread thin thanks to all the chaos. Before I can attack, Sally heads off before me and kills them faster than I've seen her kill anything. The reason being we're getting very close to where her family is located. They should have tried to escape, but if they were doing that, there wouldn't be so many guards trying to halt our progress to where they're at. It doesn't matter how many there are. I'm not letting any of them get in the way of this. Her response is a little more bloodthirsty than what I'm used to, but I don't have a problem with any of it. I catch up to her in a burst of speed, and we walk side by side as massive doors approach, and a large single soldier is guarding the door. You'll not get through. I don't know why you've attacked the great house of Orvalo, Slayer Zirn. But this is where your life ends. He draws his sword and gets into a defensive stance. This is an absolute joke to me. I literally have health tens in the billions and mana in the hundreds of billions. I launch forward and spin like a corkscrew, using my wings to tear through him and the door that he's guarding. I land in the center of the room, and I see the entire Orvalo family. This is absurd. Who I assume is the matriarch speaks, but instead of responding, I step aside. The elven queen Orizox stands and slowly descends the stairs leading up to her throne, and everyone moves back, so only Helda is the one that remains forward. So this is the one that will be fighting me. Why Slayer Zirn is here is unknown to me, but I have a feeling he's playing a part in this. It's an obvious deduction to assume my brother is helping. Since people know he's here, that makes things easy to connect. Most people would make a speech, but I'm not going to do that. You either know what you're doing is wrong, or you're too out of your mind to know. Helda cuts any sort of conversation short. The queen raises an eyebrow and places a hand on her blade's handle. She slowly draws it out and gets into a guard. As you wish, peasant. This is the last day you will desecrate my throne room with your miserable life. I fold my arms and take a seat on a free chair to witness and enjoy the fight. Helda gets into a guard too and shifts her feet. I don't know who will attack first, but I'm eager to see where all this goes. In the blink of an eye to a normal person, Orizox leaps from her spot and completely catches Helda off guard with her speed. Helda narrowly dodges a slash that would have taken her head off. They're moving fast, but not fast enough for me to lose them. You move well for a low-born peasant. Orizox is quick to start the insults in the battle. Those won't work on Helda, and she's finding that out the hard way. They're clashing blade to blade. One not faltering or giving advantage to the other. Helda is turning her body in a way that only a woman can, and Orizox is fighting in a way that I'd consider beautiful. It's almost like they're dancing. But this is much different than that. They're evenly matched when it comes to skill with the sword, so they both decide to kick it up a notch and start incorporating skills and powerful unorthodox combos. It won't be as easy as you think. You're not leaving this palace alive. Helda talks and gets an angry scowl from Orizox, making her become more violent and less precise with her attacks. My eyes lock with the matriarch of the family. My mother's father. My grandfather. I demand to know why strangers have burst into my family's home and are killing my loyal soldiers and guards. I'm Jezix Orvalo. And I'll be respected. This is the man who condemned my mother, and he doesn't even know who I am. It takes all the willpower I have not to draw my blade. All those words were intended for me since it's easy to see who Sarah is. You're a pathetic excuse for a man and a worm and coward of a father. My direct and blunt insult causes Jezix to stutter at the blatant disrespect I'm showing him. I'm not finished, and I'm going to make sure he knows every transgression he's committed against me. He stands up from his throne in anger and stomps down the steps. His wife, my grandmother, looks worried. She's staring at Sarah in fear, and I see another elven girl. One that I don't know, but will die all the same. Tell me who you are, you wretch. You'll know respect when I'm through with you. My grandmother looks like she wants to get up and stop him. Before he can move any closer, I draw my sword, and the tip ends right at his Adam's apple. He takes a deep gulp, and sweat slowly forms on his temple. My name is Salyandra Orvalo, and I've come to avenge my mother and kill this entire family for the betrayal you committed against her. His eyes go wide, and he becomes paler. He takes a step back and tries to find words to speak. How in the hell did you escape? I was assured my useless daughter and her filthy half-breed daughter would be handled. As those words leave his mouth, all I see is red. I dash forward and drive the tip of my blade through his shoulder, making sure not to kill him. Arg! He cries out in pain as I pin him to the ground. Sarah leaps in front of me to make sure none of the other family members try to get in the way. None of you will move. I scream out from behind Sarah as I twist my blade in Jezix's shoulder, and he groans out in pain. He grips the blade and tries to pull it out, but he can't get it to budge. You'll know pain when I'm done with you. Finally. They're all mine to punish. Chapter 413, Judgment 4. Jezix looks into my eyes, and I see no remorse for the atrocities that he's committed against my mother. The damned existence her set upon her. Tell me. Tell me why you did it. I was told it's because she was captured by bandits and lost her pure status. A large part of me knows that there is more to it than that. Politics at work. I twist the blade, and he lets out a long growl. Knowing the truth will make no difference now, so it can die with my family and me. It takes a piece of my soul not to end him right now. I pull out the blade and shove it into his other shoulder. Rah! He lets out a yell from the pain, but it's not as loud as the first time. He doesn't know the true suffering he's about to endure. Fine, Judgement. Perhaps seeing the family you do care about and love die in front of you will change your mind. His eyes slowly widen, and he tries to struggle free, but my sword is cleanly through and pinning him to the ground. I look towards Sarah. Get the wife. He nods his head and slowly makes his way towards her. She tries to escape, but he's too fast and pulls her by the scalp and throws her towards me. Don't you touch Judgement. Judgement is fast to try and fight for his wife. I turn my attention towards her and make my way over. I pin her under my boot, and I lean over, punching her square in the nose. An immediate crack is heard, and Judgement struggles harder. Sarah makes sure that no one else is trying to get away, and he's leaving me to do what I need to. If he won't tell me the truth, maybe you will. You can spare yourself some pain. She closes her eyes and turns her head away. Thought so. I ball up my hand into a fist and give 3 right hooks in a row. Her face is starting to swell. Judgement is trying with all his strength to pull out the blade, but it won't move. It'll keep him pinned for as long as he needs. I grab Judgement by her mouth and force her to look at me. Start talking, or I'm going to smash your teeth out next. She remains silent, and I spin her on her stomach and grab her hair. In the next second, I smash her head and mouth against the floor. Her teeth fly out along with the blood that goes with them. After getting the majority of them to break and fall out, she's nearly unconscious. You'll pay for this. I swear to the gods above you'll suffer for everything you're doing. Judgement's words don't scare me in the slightest. I spin Judgement back towards me, and her unswollen eye is fluttering open and closed. She's going to lose consciousness, and she won't be any more use to me. Since you're closing your eyes, I might as well end your miserable existence. I pull an extra dagger from my boot, and I drive it into her throat. She starts choking on her blood and staring me in the eyes as her life fades. Judgement is screaming at the top of his lungs about how he'll get revenge. My attention is turned towards the girl, the youngest one in the room. Grab her. As I stand and point, Judgement bleeds to death, gripping her throat and trying to breathe. Sarah darts towards the girl and grabs her by the neck, and tosses her down to me. She lands at my feet and looks up at me. If I had to guess, she's a relative of mine. Judgement starts to freak out and struggle even harder. His bones are cracking, and his desperation is becoming so much more enjoyable. He feels a fraction of what I've had to endure. The helplessness, the weakness, the lack of control. Don't you dare lay a hand on her. She's the last daughter of the Orvalo house. That means she's my cousin. I reach out for her, and before I can grab her by the neck, Judgement decides to speak. Okay. Okay, I'll tell you the truth. Just spare her. She's got nothing to do with any of this. My attention is back on Judgement, and he scowls at me as I stand above him. He takes a few calming breaths. I didn't think he'd break. His weaknesses were right beside him, and he still acted so arrogantly. You're not a half-breed. Your mother, she became pregnant with you after sharing a bed with the crown prince before he died, the firstborn of the throne and Orizox's son. What? What the fuck kind of lie is this? Mom never said anything about that in her diaries. It's a lie. As I'm moving to deal a killing blow to the girl, he pleads in desperation for me to listen. Your mother and the prince were discovered, and she brought shame upon our house. We cast her out because you jeopardized the line of succession for Orizox's daughters. That's the truth. No. Mom would have written about this in her diary. He looks at me in defeat and takes another breath. Yet I condemned my eldest daughter to a slave's life. I let it happen only from the fear of having my entire house destroyed. We're not as powerful as we once were. Queen Orizox would have killed all of us. I don't know what to do. My instinct makes me turn to Sarah, and my emotions are plastered all over me. Sarah doesn't know how to react either. He's shocked too. You have the rightful claim to the elven throne. You are the eldest and only daughter of Queen Orizox's only son. Your father was exiled too. He's still alive out there. My spies said he's somewhere in Avalon. My entire world has been turned upside down. Is this the truth? How do I know he's not lying? He takes a deep breath and looks towards my cousin. Please, I told you what you wanted to know. I gave you the truth. Let her live. She's the future of our house. I look down, and all I see is a frightened girl that can't speak from the terror she's in. She reminds me so much of me before I know it. Sarah is beside me with his hand on my back. Sarah wraps his arm around me and brings me into a hug. I know this is hard to hear. I don't know what I'd be thinking in your situation. What do you want to do? His question causes pain to rip through me. I pull away from him and walk over to Jezix. I stand over him and pull my blade out. He releases a long groan. I bring the sword over my shoulder and prepare to lop off his head. Everyone in this house dies except for her. This is the penance for your sins. He doesn't fight it, and he closes his eyes in acceptance. I bring my sword down, and his head flies off. The girl lets out a horrid cry, and she's doing all she can to resist grabbing her dead grandparents. I turn my attention to the rest in the room, and I give a single nod to Sarah. We both leap, and we quickly kill everyone. The walls and ceiling are painted crimson, and the blood runs through the room in all directions. Let's get out of here. I want to see what the others are up to. Sarah walks beside me as we leave. Now that we're finished. This didn't go the way I wanted it to. Chapter 414, Judgment 5. That was a lot of information that I wasn't expecting. I knew that Sally was a special girl, but I never thought she'd be a princess. She didn't even know. Her mother never said anything about this. Is this good or bad, Sally? I can't help thinking this is a bit better. Her real father isn't some random bandit. Her father is even still alive. At the location where we're going. It's hard to believe that she's really an Orizox. That's her real last name. She's supposed to take after her father. And her father is the son of Queen Orizox. I don't know how to feel. This isn't something I ever thought possible, and I never imagined there was a chance of this happening. She's taking it better than I thought she would. The confidence she's built is helping her, and it'll bring her through this revelation. Does this change things between us? Should we tell what we learned to the others? She brings up valid topics. I'll never change how I'll feel about her, but the others might be apprehensive about learning the truth about Sally. The truth we just learned. We're slowly walking out of the estate and taking time to process the information. Nothing will ever change the way I feel about you, Sally. But we shouldn't say anything to the others when we reach them. It'll be our secret. She doesn't immediately react, and that's good. She slows down and walks beside me as we walk out of the mansion on the estate. We stop, and my wings spread out, and I grab Sally. Next stop, the palace. Haley and the others should be facing off with Queen Orizox. Hopefully, Helda was able to handle her without any problems. She hugs me tighter, and I flap my wings hard, and we soar into the sky. I level out and adjust to head towards the palace. Helda is probably strong enough to take on Queen Orizox. Haley being there assures a safe and deathless battle on our side of this conflict. When we get there, should we just bust through the roof or come through the doors? 'Cause we're approaching fast. I want to hear Sally's idea. While it doesn't make that big a difference, it's still important to me. She takes a few seconds to think about it, but I feel like I already know her answer. Let's come through the roof. I don't want to waste any time. I want to ask the Queen something before she dies. I'll need your help to keep the other busy while I ask her. She's going to ask about her father. I don't blame her. She just learned about him. The palace is quickly coming into view, and I grip Sally a bit more to brace for the dive and through the roof. Get ready. This is going to be a bit bumpy. Once over the roof, I dive down and wrap Sally into my wings right before breaking through the ceiling, making sure to protect her. We break through, and I see everything in slow motion. I see everyone turning to see us breaking through, and the fight between Helda and Queen Orizox is halted to see us. Haley and I lock eyes since we're the only ones that can move at this speed and perceive each other. She's still faster than me. I spin and spread my wings open and land on the ground hard with Sally safely in my arms. My attention is taken from the battle, and I watch Sarah land with Sally in her arms. Looks like they've handled what they needed. Gods above, he's really here. I look back towards Queen Orizox and Helda, and I hear said queen voicing her disbelief. Why? Why are you doing this, Slayer Zirn? Helda tries to take advantage of the distraction and attacks. It almost works, but Queen Orizox is good enough to barely dodge and leap back, taking deep breaths as she does. Sarah folds his arms and makes his way over to us with Sally beside him. Helda, don't kill her. Sally and I need to speak to her alone. We all give him confused looks, and I don't know what he's planning. They must want information Queen Orizox has. Why do they want to speak with her? Helda doesn't look happy about that, but Queen Orizox will still die. Before anything else can be said, the doors to the throne room swing open, and there is a group of people. They look familiar, but I don't think I've met them. My eyes meet the man's, and I freeze. Daddy! That man looks so similar to my father, but he's an elf. In the span of a second, their looks change to that of our family. My mom, my dad, and Marcus are here. What the hell? Sarah takes the words right out of my mouth. Mom is staring right at Sarah. She starts to run hard and move fast, leaping at Sarah, and he can do nothing but catch. Not because he misses her, but because it's what you should do. She starts crying and choking on her voice. My sweet baby boy, I've missed you so much. Way to play the favorite subtle. Mom, I never thought I'd ever see you again. We've been trying to catch up to you for so long. How in the hell did they even know where we were? She lets go of Sarah and turns to me as Dad and Marcus shows up. Our eyes lock, and she starts to cry, and for some reason, it means a lot to me. My little girl, your hair has gotten so long. I can't help laughing a little. My hair has gotten long, and Sarah's has too. We're back in our human looks. She brings me into a hug and kisses the top and sides of my head. She lets go of me, and everyone is looking at us, confused. I don't know how to react to what's happening now. Sarah and Haley are apparently meeting up with their parents. I keep looking at the mother. She's the one that will approve of Sarah and me before anything else can happen. We all hear blade clash, and our attention is taken by the battle between Helda and Queen Orizox continues. They're both fighting hard, and they're sweating. I look at the queen, and I don't know how to feel. She's my grandmother, but she's a horrible and tyrannical leader. But she knows where my father is, where I might be able to find him. I'm getting sick of this, peasant. I'm ending this. She leaps back and starts to power up some attacks that I assume are powerful. Helda prepares to tank the attack, but Sarah clenches. Dodge that. You don't want to take a hit from that. Helda barely reacts to the blast of power, and she's caught in the explosion. As the smoke clears, Helda has taken damage. Her entire right side is bloody, and she's breathing hard. Her right arm is limply hanging next to her. This isn't good, and Haley is about to step in. Before she can, Helda holds up her good hand. Don't interfere. It'll mean nothing if an elf can't beat her. She stops and lets out a sigh. Helda's pride and stubbornness is coming back to bite her. If I'm to die in this battle, I'm taking her with me. It's hard to hear that, but a part of me wants to step in. I can fight and beat her. I'm an elf. Chapter 415, A Kingdom and People Freed. Queen Orizox has nearly mortally wounded me with that last attack. Calling off Haley is a foolish thing to do, but if an elf doesn't free the elven people, nothing will change. Peasant, you can't go on. If you and your friends submit, I'll be merciful. If Slayer's Earn joins my kingdom, I'll even let you go. Sarah would never do something like that, and he'd kill her before that would happen. Blood is coming out of me fast, and my right arm is numb. It isn't moving when I try. There is only one way this ends, Queen Orizox. Either you die, or we both do. Your madness and rule are coming to an end. The elven people will be free from your tyranny. I straighten my body and take a breath. My fighting arm is disabled, but that doesn't mean this is over. Before I can press for an attack, a golden light envelopes me, and all my wounds are healed. I turn to see Sarah holding out his hand and using his healing skills on me. I won't do this again, so fight smarter. I send him a smile and mentally thank him. He gives a half grin and finishes healing me. Queen Orizox lets out a little growl and stands across from me. She's a reasonable distance away, and now I have an advantage. As badly as I wanted to finish this fight without any outside help, getting healed is something I needed. I'm sick of ordinary people thinking they have a say. You are nothing but the dirt beneath my boot. She charges forward in anger and our blades clash. She's moving a little slower than she did before, and that's from using so much mana on one attack. In a flash, she drives the tip of her blade towards my heart, but I block it with the flat end of my blade and kick her away. She twirls in the air and lands, coming back at me with another attack. I parry and twist her blade to cause an opening. I take a jab at her heart. Queen Orizox narrowly dodges the attack, and I get a good cut on her shoulder. It's not nearly fatal or stops her from attacking, but it's bleeding good. She backflips away, and I pressure her, giving her no time to gather a defense. She's recoiling from the power of my attacks and gritting her teeth in anger. Filthy peasant! Her retaliation is coming. Her speed increases, and she kicks me away and follows fast, jabbing the tip of her blade towards all the vital areas of my body. I'm blocking and parrying her attacks, and I use her unstable mood to shift my position and get inside her guard. I play dirty, and I headbutt the shit out of her. A large crack comes from her nose, and it's pouring blood. She jumps back and tries to regain balance. I'm betting that disorientated her good. Wasting no time, I dash forward, and I jab the tip of my blade through her left shoulder. Erg! She stopped a fatal attack on her heart, but she's sacrificed her shoulder. She pushes me away, and my blade comes with me, leaving a clean and debilitating injury. Her left shoulder and arm are hanging to the side, and she's lost all mobility. Figured I hit a nerve or tendon in there. What's the matter, Queen? Never felt a real injury before. Her fury is boiling over, and you can see it all over her. Blood is leaking from her nose and shoulders. I told you. This isn't over until you're dead or we both are. I'm not losing here. I've come too far to fail now. To my surprise, she takes a calming breath. I can't let her gain any ground. I have to keep attacking her. So, instead of allowing her to gain a foothold, I attack and let a blitz of strikes out. She's doing her best to block and parry my attacks with one arm, but the power behind my strikes is starting to wear her out. But she feints a weakness and slashes my side. It's not deep enough to kill me, but it's bleeding, and if I move the way I am, I'm going to make it worse. Don't think I'm going to lay down and die, peasant. No matter how much ground you gain, this victory you desperately want will come with a great challenge. You may win, but not before dying yourself. I'm prepared for that. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let it happen. They're not going to give the other the win. Helda is determined to be the one that frees the oppressed people of the Elven Kingdom. Her motivations and dedication to this are probably going to cost her everything. Mind telling us what's going on? Sarah's mother decides to break the silence that was held for this battle. Sarah and Haley didn't expect to see their parents, not today. Their faces tell everything. That's Heldavora. She's a friend and fighting for the freedom of the elven people in this battle. Haley starts to talk, and I would think Sarah should be the one to explain it to them. Not that it's bad, but I just would have thought Sarah be the one. My eyes aren't on them anymore. My attention is on the battle, and Helda slowly gains an advantage. Regardless of her wound. What are you guys really doing here? The sudden question from Sarah almost takes my mind off the battle. Sarah isn't a person that likes surprises. That much I know. His parents showing up out of nowhere is a surprise, to be sure. His wings are still out. The reason I can tell is from him still having them spread out. Nearly engulfing the entire group. What's wrong with wanting to finally reunite with our kids? Do you really not want us around that bad? Violet, the mother, decides to respond before anyone else can. All I hear from Sarah is silence. All the conversations stop as Helda and Queen Orizox unleash powerful skills. Negating in a clash of power that hasn't happened in the fight yet. I'll give the Queen credit. She's far stronger and more capable than I believed her to be. We're ending this. Here and now. I'm taken aback by the sudden outburst from Helda. I've lost a lot of blood, everything is starting to go grey, my arms and legs are feeling heavier by the second I'm dying. She's one I try my hardest to keep up with her new onslaught of attacks, but she opens my guard, and the next thing I feel is numbness in my right arm. I look with my blurry grey vision, and my arm is gone. Oh, in the next second, I feel her blade sink into my chest. It hurts, it truly does, but not as bad knowing that I don't know what happened to my daughters. Wait. Don't kill her. I need to speak with her. A distorted voice bounces around my head as I'm lifted off the ground a little in someone's arms. Please tell me where your son is, tell me where my father is. Father? My son? I see Saliandra Orvalo. Now I know why Slayer Zirn is here and why this attack has occurred. My life is slowly fading. My son, he was exiled to where the kingdom of Avalon now sits. He was there before it appeared. I don't know where he is specifically, but he's somewhere near Tessie. My voice leaves me as I feel a tremendous cold overcome me. My eyes are heavy, and I close them. All that I see is darkness before a light appears. A man walks to me, grabbing my hand, and my weakness is gone. Are you coming? Sweet cakes. I know that voice, he's come back for me. Chapter 416. The completion of Sally's quest and next step. Helda has won, and now Queen Orizox lays dead in Sally's arms. It's been a long journey getting here, and I feel a weight lift off my shoulders. I walk up next to Sally and crouch down next to her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder in the process. I'm sorry she couldn't give you his location, but we know a general area. She gently lays Queen Orizox down and brings me into a hug. She remains silent, and I lift her off the ground in my hug. We've done it, everything and everyone that's caused the life I had is dead. My past is done and gone. It's a great feeling knowing that I'm free to do what I want now with nothing coming back to haunt me. Her soft whispers in my ear aren't the only thing about her. Her personal quest is done. Quest: Sally's revenge completed. Details: help Saliandra Orvalo get revenge on the Orvalo family and the Elven royal family. Head to the Elven Kingdom and find your way to the capital. Once there, how you complete this quest is up to you. Objective 1, find a way into the Elven Kingdom. Completed. Objective 2, make it to the capital and successfully eliminate the royal family. Completed. Objective 3, help Sally avenge her mother and her past by destroying the Orvalo family. Completed. Difficulty: Legendary. Rewards: 15 player levels and 15 levels for all active skills. Saliandra Orvalo has learned that her father is alive and she's the first princess of the Elven Kingdom. Saliandra Orvalo has learned she's not a half-breed from her mother being raped. You have max reputation with Saliandra Orvalo. You can marry Saliandra Orvalo. Warning: marrying Saliandra Orvalo will make you king of the Elven Kingdom. The screen floats in front of my eyes, and it's amazing to see this long and challenging quest completed. The hidden rewards for the quest has turned out to be something I never expected. I never counted on Sally being the firstborn princess of the Elven Kingdom. Let alone her father still being alive. The greatest thing is her father was exiled where we're going next. Everyone is looking at us confused, especially my mother. Helda and the other elves in the group are looking at me for an explanation to the whole father thing Sally brought up. If you want to know anything, that's up to Sally. Sally keeps hugging me, and I'm fine with carrying her in my arms for the time being. Once we make it back to my family, I have to get Sally off me gently. She stands next to me and fixes her clothes. My mom and her share a look, and Sally extends her hand. Hello, Mrs. Adamo. I'm Saliandra Orvalo, and I'm your son's girlfriend. But you can just call me Sally. My mom freezes up at the words coming from Sally's mouth. It takes her a second, but she shakingly grabs Sally's hand and responds. Well, it had to happen eventually. I'm glad my son has found such a beautiful girl. I can tell my mom is struggling with the prospect of me finally having a girlfriend. She gets over her shock and brings Sally into a hug. Sally doesn't respond right away, getting caught off guard. After a second, they're hugging and they pull away. My eyes turn towards Dad and he's wearing a proud and smug look. I shake my head with a smile. After Mom and Sally start talking, I feel a tug on my leather armor. I look down and see Marcus. He's got a toothy smile. Well, if it isn't my little brother. I pick him up and put him on my shoulders. He's using my wings as handles for extra grip, and I want to talk to Dad before we do anything else. That is going to be postponed, cause Helda is walking right towards me. So this is your family. Looks like you got a lot of love around you. I close my eyes for a second and give a nod. I take it you're not sticking around. I shake my head. Avalon is our next stop. Now that I'm over level 200, I have 3 tier quests to do, and the first is located in Avalon. I'll be tier 2 after that. I figured as much. My group has decided to stay here and transition the Elven Kingdom into a new age of peace and prosperity. Restructuring the government is going to take a while, but we're up for the challenge. Looks like they've decided to rebuild from here. They'll have resistance from nobles that weren't here, but Helda can handle this. I have a feeling that it's her destiny. I hold out my hand and heal the wounds and injuries she's sustained in her battle with Queen Orizox. I'll have to talk with my family about what they plan to do, but Sally and I are heading to the Kingdom of Avalon. She smiles and folds her arms. I've come to really respect and understand Helda. She's someone I'd call a friend and ally after everything we've been through. Remember, you'll always have friends and allies here in the Elven Kingdom ready to help you. I need to go and talk with Melimora and find Terox. We have a lot of work to do. She reaches out her hand and I grab it. We give a final shake and she turns around. She walks away and that only leaves a couple of things left to do, and those are regarding my family and what to do with them. As I turn around to look, they're all waiting for me. Let's go somewhere we can talk in private. That's the first thing we need to do, and there are plenty of places in this large palace to talk without anyone listening. Seems as though Sarah has completed a challenge befitting someone of great power. It's easy to overthrow a ruler, but doing it the way he and his friends have is an accomplishment. Innocent lives were spared and only those deserving were killed in the battles that took place. Everyone is taking much longer than I thought they would. The tasks the Almighty Father gave many of us is becoming complicated. Archangel Michael is having a tough time tracking down the gods he needs to speak to. The old gods will be returning, and as I said before, time is on our side. There is still much to be done. I'm tasked with getting Sarah, but I can only do that once all the other gods are gathered. I'm surprised Gabriel was able to convince Samael to help. His price was steep, but Sarah doesn't have any use for the dice of Wayland. Not as they are, and Samael doesn't have the power to bring them to their full potential. You've grown powerful, my young friend. I'm looking forward to speaking with you again. My words carry on the wind to nowhere on this mountain I'm relaxing on. A great battle is coming, and all of creation is threatened by the old gods. It's the reason the Dark Ones have agreed to join forces with Overworld. Underworld has many powerful entities, but none are as understanding as Samael and his allies. Gaia is where this battle will take place, and the lands will be ravaged by blood and war. The innocent will die. But what's about to happen will help. Worldwide announcement: all players will have their friends lists and messaging capabilities restored. The system is now being granted to NPC after they undergo a trial by the system to deem if they're worthy of it or not. NPCs will have all the same capabilities as players if they pass their trials, allowing them to respawn and gain access to the system, becoming players in themselves. What? Talk about a day filled with surprises. My brother is as surprised as I am. I look at Sally and she's looking at something invisible in front of her. What's this, Sarah? Looks like she's already proved herself. Chapter 417, A Restoration. There's a translucent screen floating in front of me with numbers, descriptions, my class, an assortment of stats. What was that announcement? Why was I able to hear that? I have so many questions, and as I lift my head to look at Sarah, he and Haley are sharing a concerned look. My intuition is telling me I've become like them. We were all in a meeting hall, and we were discussing what to do next. That's a player interface. It shows you everything you need to know about yourself. Your gear, your stats, your skills, health, mana. It's what I have and the rest of my family. Wow, so this is what he was talking about when he said that players are different. As I'm going through the information in my player interface, I notice that I have a lot of unused stat points. Mind explaining what the stat points do? 'Cause I have a lot of them. 120 of them, to be exact. I know I've gotten stronger over the course of my time with Sarah, but this must be a numerical value placed on that progress. Sarah steps closer to me and takes a breath. Stat points are a form of currency to upgrade your stats. You've probably noticed the strength, endurance, dexterity, speed, and focus tabs. You spend your stat point to raise those values, and the corresponding stat will rise. It's obvious how players gain power so fast. My level is 152, and I can't help smiling at the large number. My attention falls on the EXP bar, and my curiosity gets the better of me. How does the EXP work? What does it do? Sarah has a hard time finding the right words to explain it. If this is how difficult it is to explain to me, then it must be a complicated part of being a player. He sighs and closes his eyes, and folds his arms, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. EXP is the process of killing monsters and enemies and getting progress on said bar. Once you hit 100% on the express bar, you'll get 5 stat points to spend. Since I hold a divine class, I get 10 stat points to spend. So he gains twice the power anyone else does? This answers many questions I've had about Sarah and his fellow players. Now that I'm a part of it, I get to be like them. Since you're a player now, that means even when and if you die, you'll respawn at the nearest Cathedral of Resurrection. They appeared when we came to this world permanently. Yet, a bunch of cathedrals came out of the ground pretty much everywhere. This all happened before I met Sarah. The players are at the center of a lot of mysteries, so that means I can help you on your most dangerous quests? I can stop being a liability. This is awesome. Violet Adamo, Sarah, and Haley's mother, giggles at my reaction. So you've lived like this the entire time? I knew about him being able to respawn, but I didn't realize the extent of everything he can do using this system and player interface. Sally is beyond excited about being like Haley and me, and I'm excited for her. I'm a little worried at the same time. While she can join me on my quests now, that also means she will be a bit more reckless. I don't want you forgetting about being safe, Sally. Just because you can't stay dead doesn't mean there isn't a penalty. She looks at me in confusion. When players are killed, they lose a level, and the corresponding amount of stats gained from that level loss. If she were to die right now, she'd lose a level and lose 5 stat points. When you die, you'll lose a level and 5 stat points as punishment, setting your progress back. She doesn't like the sound of that, but it can be avoided. All you have to do is not die. She touches the screen, and it disappears, and I know that I'm not done talking about it with her. It's just now isn't the best time since we're discussing what we'll do now that we're all together again. Alright, don't let me interrupt you guys again. You have a serious conversation to have. Sally takes a back seat, and my attention turns to my family. Sally and I are going to the Kingdom of Avalon, and I'm getting a lot of lost progress done while I'm there. Sally and I will be heading for the Kingdom of Avalon to handle a lot of things we both need done. Haley never gave her decision, and neither did Jasmine. Speaking of Jasmine, Haley will want to make her a player before they do anything else. The benefit to all this is that the Messaging and Friends tab has been restored, meaning we can communicate while apart. Since NPCs can become players, I'm going to find out how to get Jasmine to become one. Best guess, we'll need to head to the church. I can contact you through messaging to find out where you are in Avalon. That seems like as good a plan as any. My eyes shift to my parents and Marcus. My mother has a hopeful gleam in her eyes. We want to come with Sally and you once Haley and Jasmine are done, they can catch up to us in Avalon. What do you say? Mom is the first to speak. I don't know how good of an idea that is. It's not necessarily bad, but I can't carry all of them. There isn't enough room on my back. The idea that comes to me at the moment is heading to a city or town close by the Elven Kingdom and using an airship. Either that, you have held a request an airship to come to Greshina to pick us up. I don't see why not, but we'll have to use an airship. Teleporters are an option, but the gold fees for all of us will be ridiculous. The Adventurers Guild will take everything we have. It's been so long since I've looked upon my children's faces, and I'm so glad that I pushed harder these last couple of days to catch up. If I didn't then, we would have missed them. First things first, everyone add each other to their friends lists. They've been wiped since we added each other on Earth. I open my player interface and what Sarah says is true. I send a friend request to everyone, and my friends list quickly shows new names. The only person that isn't on here is Jasmine, and that's because she doesn't have a player interface or access to the system. My eyes rest on Salyandra Orvalo's name, and I'm having a much harder time accepting my baby boy has a girlfriend than I'm letting everyone see. She seems like a sweet and kind girl, but I'm going to need to spend time with her before I can approve of her. Not like it'll matter, Sarah will be with her either way, but I want to know the girl who has found a way into my oldest son's heart. Alright, since that's handled, I'm going to talk with Helda. Everyone else, find something to do. Sarah begins to walk off. But before he gets too far, he stops Sally from following. I want you to stay here and get to know my parents. Don't worry. They aren't as scary as they seem. I take minor offense to that. It's not like I haven't earned that, though. Chapter 418, Going to wait a few days. Helda and I discussed getting an airship here, and she'd be willing to do it. It'll take a bit of time, and I'm wanting to get out of this kingdom today. Not everything will cater to my needs. Helda and her allies are too busy shifting the Elven people. They've announced that the Elven Kingdom is free and are having to deal with a lot of people. They basically have to fill the power vacuum. She's given me a time frame of around 2 days, and even if we leave early, it's still coming. A bunch of leaders from different kingdoms are coming here. Apparently, King Jackson from Zenith is on his way too. My involvement with the liberation of the Elven Kingdom has drawn much attention, and it's safe to say that leaders are coming to Helda because she has a connection to me. This is a factual and accurate statement. Helda has become a good friend of mine, along with Melimora. The rest are what I'd call acquaintances. The empty halls leading to the room where my family is a little haunting. The solid gold is stained with clotted blood, and it's a darkish hue between red and black. The battles in these halls were brutal. Speaking of battles, the Elven army and its military leaders have unconditionally surrendered to Helda and her council is the best way to describe it. The door to the room is quickly approaching. I'm relieved not to hear anything coming from it. No screaming or yelling, to be exact. My hand lands on the door, and I gently push it open. My eyes land on everyone sitting around a table and having a casual conversation. My mom and Sally are sitting next to one another, quietly talking, and I'm glad she's being open with Sally. Everyone notices me and quiets down as I make an approach. I've got good news and bad news. In my opinion, there is bad news. To others, there is nothing other than good news. The good news is we have an airship coming here and is transporting many kingdoms and royalty. The bad news is we have to wait for 2 days for it to get here. Haley and my dad are the only ones that show a sliver of anger at the prospect of waiting 2 days. My mother seems to be extra happy with it. Knowing her, she's going to use this time to try and catch up. That's not a problem, but I'm not a big talker or storyteller. Alright, looks like we're waiting 2 days then. As much as I want to leave now, we can't all fit on you for a lift to Avalon. Dad is the first to speak, and there is agreement from everyone besides Haley. Mainly because Jasmine needs to pass whatever trials she has to become a player. That's all well and good, but Jasmine and I need to figure out how to make her a player. So we're leaving today. If there were a possibility for the sound of glass shattering from Mom's face, it would. Don't give me that look. We can message each other now. She's right. Our maps have been restored to full functionality. Meaning we can mark locations on our maps and see friends on them no matter how far away. I'm not going to ask you to stay, Haley. It just sucks that after all this chasing, I'm about to part with another one of my children so soon. Mom has taken our absence hard, but it's within the range I expected. When you live for your kids, and only your kids. Once they're gone and no longer need you, it's a hard spot to be in. I couldn't put it into words since I've never gone through it, but it's very hard for mothers. Thanks, Mom. Remember, you'll be able to message me anytime and see me on the map. No matter how far away. That helps Mom a little, but not much. I make my way over to the table and take a seat next to Sally, and I know that it's time that I give my mom some attention. Okay, it's time to ask. How in the hell did you guys even find us? This entire situation of them finding Haley and me seems nearly impossible. Not without some magical item or a cheat. Which in itself is impossible. She smiles and opens her inventory. Pulling out a strange-looking rock. All of a sudden, a hologram pops out of it and shows a map and path to us. We bought this from a player's store. It was designed to find blood relatives using blood magic. It led us to you guys. Made by players. Talk about an impressive invention for its time. Too bad it's obsolete now. Tessa stands next to me as we enjoy the balcony of our suite. This is a royal airship, and it's heading to all the kingdoms that want to go to Greshina. We have a lot of stops, but it's something we have to deal with. The company that owns airships is independent. Meaning they don't have to listen to me or other rulers. Hence why I have no control. The puffy clouds ride the sides of the airship, and the view is something to die for. To think that Slayer Zirn can just flap his wings and get a view anytime he wanted. Amelia Zirn wanted to come with us, but she's too busy developing the land that we won in our war with Belvia. Do you think he'll recognize me? My wife has a voice filled with humor. She's changed a lot due to the feather from his wings that he gave to her. It's given her many powers and even more attention. Her hair has changed to completely white, and she looks far more youthful than she did before. Her skin sparkles like freshly fallen snow, and her eyes are bluer than the hazy eyes see. She's quite the sight to behold. I don't know exactly what Slayer Zirn has been up to, but liberating the elven people is something that I didn't expect. No doubt it was from Sally. She's a good girl, and she has a powerful grip on Slayer Zirn. That could be something dangerous if not controlled. That's not something we should be concerned about. In truth, what we should be concerned about is our people becoming players. There are many things that have changed since the players' arrival in our world, and none of them have been for the better. While I'm still apprehensive about all this, it could be something that my kingdom can exploit and grow stronger from. I know what you mean. I'm worried too. She understands more than any other woman could. Sally is a sweet and kind girl, and she's growing on me. I'm proud of my son more than he'll ever know. He's accepted her and loves her despite all the horrible things she's had to endure. Most men would turn away from her due to the things she suffered, thinking her less of what she is. Sarah has looked past all that and seen Sally for who she is. I can only hope that Marcus becomes a man like Sarah, and it's not a bad thing if he doesn't. Sarah is a hard one to follow, and he's broken all expectations that I've ever had of him. Why don't we get something to eat before you leave, sis? Sarah turns his attention to Haley, and she smiles. It's been a while since we had any good food either. Chapter 419, NPCs everywhere are undergoing their trials. A day has passed, and Haley and Jasmine are off trying to figure out how to make her a player like us. Helda has been sharing some of the reports she's been getting from other kingdoms. She's taken up the role of leader until all of this is done. In my opinion, there isn't a better person for the job. Apparently, kingdoms are filled with NPCs trying to become players. It wasn't too long ago that NPCs hated us with every fiber of their being, and here they are now, racing to become like us. It's a tremendous thing. The hypocrisy that lives in people. Can't say I blame them. Being spared from death like players is hard to pass up. Thanks for taking this time with me. Mom and I are on one of the many balconies of the palace. She wants to spend some quality time with me. She claims it's to make up for all the time we have missed. Regarding my mom's motivations, they're usually much simpler. It's been a long time since we last talked, Mom. I can't remember when it was just the two of us like this. It's always been the family around or things occupying our time. There is a problem crossing my mind, and that problem is my parents don't know about me knowing things about the ancients' world. About coming back through time. Being the catalyst for all of this. Sally seems like a sweet and kind girl. Not to mention beautiful. I'm glad that you found someone you liked. I was worried you didn't know what love was. I understand that. I didn't give much effort into the love that a man and woman share. It was never a priority. I'm a lot of things, Mom, and at one point, I did believe that I'd be alone for the rest of my life. That was before I met Sally. She treated me so differently. I came into the inn she was working at after killing hordes of monsters and smelling worse than death. Sally never deserved the life she got, and now that it's behind her, she can move forward with a smile and a better outlook on life. You and her make a good team. Doing all this is proof of that. Things are going to change now that she can fight next to you without dying. She's right about that. Sally is going to push herself pretty hard. I wouldn't expect anything less from her. Sometimes, the best part of her is her drive to change her life and others. Maybe Haley can find a nice man and get the same love that you've found. It's so hard seeing you two grow up, and Marcus isn't far behind. Her voice starts to crack as the tears begin falling from her eyes. It's hard to see my mom cry. That's one thing a son never wants to see. His mother crying. I take a step over and wrap her in a one-armed hug as we overlook the balcony. I'm hoping for the same thing regarding Haley. I'm sorry that I grew up too fast. I can't help saying that with a smile and a chuckle, which causes her to laugh and dry her tears too. Her mood is already lightening up. Haley and Jasmine are already long gone from Greshina and are heading to one of the closest cities outside the Elven Kingdom's borders to figure out what they need to do. Haley seems so different, like she's seen some horrible shit. The same look I see you have from time to time. It breaks my heart. She's more astute and observant than I gave her credit for. When Haley learned the truth about her fate in the future, it mentally broke her for a while. It took me some time to help her put everything back together. You don't need to worry about Haley. She's strong and can handle anything that this world can throw at her. I have confidence in my sister. She's proved that she's capable and is ready to fight any threat to her life. My mom dries the corners of her eyes, and the wind blows slightly. What about you, Sarah? Should I worry about you? You seem to bury a lot of pain away from the world. A mother knows even after so much time apart and growth, she still sees that I'm holding on to some dark shit. There are things about my past and life that I've never given a second thought. Mainly because of how horrible they were. Seeing my sister become a crack whore and my mother dying is at the top. The implosion of my family and our lives haunts me even now. If Haley knew everything I knew, she'd not sleep at night. You don't need to worry about me. I'm used to it. For some reason, those words cause her to cringe. It's probably because it's something parents never want to hear from their kids. That they're used to something that causes them great physical or emotional pain. When someone says that they're not all right, she leaves it at that, and I'm grateful she does. My problems are my own, and I don't want or expect anyone to try and help me with them. It sucks that I didn't get to spend any time with Haley before she got to leave, but I'm happy that Sarah and Violet are getting some time together. I'll want to speak to my firstborn son alone too. There are things we need to discuss. Mr. Adamo. Can you tell me what Sarah was like when he was a kid? My attention is taken away from my thoughts by Sally's question. I remember those days like they were yesterday. Out of all three of our kids, Sarah was the easiest to raise. He made it fun being a parent. It's funny being asked this by Sally. Since she's older than all of us. He was a quiet and composed kid. There were times he'd cry, but only when it was serious. Violet became really attached to him. He was so easy to love. Haley grew jealous of Sarah, and we tried to do something about it. There wasn't much to be done. Sarah never demanded attention. He was always off doing his own thing when he wasn't around us. And that only frustrated Haley more. He made it seem like no matter what, it wouldn't matter as much to him as it did to her. Pretty soon, Sarah started to grow both physically and mentally. Leaving behind his immature sister, gaining love and admiration from Violet. Something Haley never got, not the same way Sarah did. Haley is my princess and my favorite. That really helped her get over a lot of her issues. Sarah never cared about who was favorite or more loved. Sometimes, I wish he did care. That way, Haley could see that Sarah had imperfections too. But he was too smart for his age. Still is. That scorned Haley for a long time. There was a moment when he saved Haley from drowning in the river. He was so young. He was old enough to have an intelligent conversation, but he wasn't older than 8 at the time. Sally looks across the large hall, and Helda can be seen talking with various people and looking sleep-deprived. Thanks for sharing, but I think I need to have a talk with Helda about resting. Sally goes out of her way to help a lot of people, and that's a good trait. I'm glad that Sarah found her. Chapter 420, How to Start the Trials. I didn't realize how nice it'd be to entirely be out of Greshina and the Elven Kingdom. Godfrey is filled with players from Earth and NPCs tagging along. Trying to become players themselves. Ever since the announcement that NPCs could become players, relations between the players and NPCs have skyrocketed. Allowing for better communication and formation of parties. Much of my attention and focus on the last day has been trying to find out the best course of action to take to get Jasmine to her trials. Sarah and the rest of my family still have a day till the airship arrives to take them to Avalon. Jasmine and I will be busy figuring out how to make her a player. Once she is one, I'll get a hold of Sarah and find out where they are. Jasmine herself has been looking forward to becoming a player. Seeing Sally become one has motivated her, and I'm glad. We're resting in a tavern for the time being. Getting some food and talking about our next steps. Do you really think the best course of action is to check the giant cathedrals? We've already been by the church. This is the next best option, and from the looks of it, NPCs that have become players all did so at the cathedrals that players use to respawn after dying. Yes, Jasmine. From the information I've been able to gather, this is the method for you to become a player. Word is spreading between players and NPCs, which is why I know this now. I know she's nervous about facing her trials, and I won't be able to help her with them. From the grapevine, I've heard that she'll respawn if she dies in her trials. This is the bright side, and it's a good one. What do you think I'll be facing in my trials? It's hard to say. Jasmine will face something different from her trials. Every NPC has a different and unique trial tailored to them by the system. Whatever she does face, it'll be something that tests if she can be a player. That's not up to us, Jasmine. That's up to the system. When you become a player, your life will change. She's not looking too positive, but that's understandable. She doesn't know what she's walking into. There have been many stories already circulating about what some NPCs have faced for their trials. Some have had to face great monsters that are a manifestation of their fears. Others have needed to face their past. It's a different experience for everyone. All are controlled by the system. This is a great display of what the system is truly capable of. Jasmine stares at her empty plate of food. I'm glad to see her appetite hasn't disappeared. Why do you think Sally didn't have to take a trial to become a player? She's asked a good question and one that I don't know the answer to. The best thing I can think of is she's already faced the hardest thing she could, so the system gave her the status of a player. There is probably more complexity to it. But it's not something that we'll ever know. I wouldn't waste time thinking about that. What you should be doing is preparing yourself mentally for what you might face. The good thing is if you die during your trials, you'll be respawned. Then you can keep trying until you beat them. My determination is spreading to her. She needs a bit of encouragement to get to that point where she can take the trials on. She's a strong girl, but she's still weak mentally. Sally has overcome those mental weaknesses and is a new person. Jasmine is still carrying a lot of pain and hasn't handled it the same way Sally has. Yeah, that'll be an experience to remember. We give a chuckle and take a moment of silence. The tavern we're in is pretty lively, given how early it is in the day. There are players and NPCs celebrating and telling stories of what the trials were like. Jasmine, what do we do if I can't pass my trials? I expected something like this, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It's an appropriate response to the stress she's under. She sees my smile and becomes even more confused. Then you'll keep trying until you do pass them, Jasmine. Life isn't easy, and if you want to be like my family and me, you'll have to pass your trials. It's the only way you're going to become a player. There is silence as my words sink in. I watch as determination grows on her body and face. Most kids would be jealous that their sibling is getting more attention than them. But I couldn't be happier. Sarah is taking all the smothering and suffocating attention that I was getting from Mom. It's his turn to be treated like a child. Sarah, eat your food. I went through a lot of trouble to make it. The pile of slop on our plates is food? Talk about a major failure. Mom is a fantastic cook, or at least she was one. You need a cooking skill or cooking class to cook in the ancients world. This is something Mom doesn't have, so all her food is coming out like this. I'm not eating this, Mom. This is disgusting. Mom would normally get angry if someone said that about her cooking. But this time, it's different. She looks down at her plate and grimaces. You're right, god damn it. Where the hell can I find a cooking skill in this fucking world? Mom immediately covers her mouth and looks directly at me. Before she can say anything, Sarah and Dad are already laughing, making Mom blush and try to hide her face. Mom took a lot of pride in her cooking, but now that she can't make good food anymore, an avenue of fulfillment is gone. She didn't cook because she was the mom or the woman, but because she's been doing it since she was a kid and loves it. It's been a long time since I heard you cuss like that about cooking. Dad starts to pile it on, and Mom isn't happy. I can't help but start to laugh too, and Mom is about to get up and storm off, but Sarah grabs her wrist and stops her. Oakman, Mom. You gotta admit this is funny. We've never seen you cook something too horrible. She tries her best to hold back a smile, but the situation is just too funny and rare. She breaks and starts to laugh too. I have to bend over and put my hands on my knees to help me breathe better. It's too funny to be mad at. It really is. It takes another minute, but we've all calmed down, and I take a seat again. It's okay, Mom. I know of a way for you to get a cooking skill if you really want one. But you don't need to cook for everyone anymore. He makes a good point. But I've been cooking for so many years. I can't help but want it. It's hard to think of myself and not being able to make good food. Okay, we can talk about that after we get to Avalon. He nods his head at my answer, and I can't help but smile. I've missed my daughter and oldest son for so long. I'm so glad to be here with you, Sarah. My sweet boy.